We're live now.
Hello, uh, good evening. Welcome to Psychological Horizons. Um, a very pleasant evening to our esteemed panelists, moderators, and our online viewers. Grateful to be back with yet another informative session on career prospects after attaining a degree in psychology. I, Elishaba, will be your event coordinator for today's session on Meet the Social Sector Psychologists to learn and to gain new insights from these compassionate humans. I graduated from Sampurna.montfort College with a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I'm currently working as an in house psychologist at Yotos, an online counseling platform for mental health and emotional wellness. The aim of Psychological Horizons, curated by Montfort Alumni team, is to help students, emerging professionals, understand and to stay informed about the various opportunities that are in the field of psychology and mental health. Along with this, we want to develop a realistic picture of how things are, what to expect, the challenges, and the life experiences that have helped that would help to make a informed decision. So without a further ado, let me introduce you to our moderator, Dr. Sudarshan. um, so he is a RCI licensed psychotherapist who is practicing since 2011. uh, his trusted area of field has been in rehabilitation psychology, with an attempt to incorporate Indian knowledge in psychotherapeutic procedures. And our panelists meet Amiti. She's a research associate at Center for Mental Health Law and Policy. So she Just give me a second. Yes. She completed her master's MSc psychology at Montfort. She worked as a researcher at the Institute of Public Health in Bangalore for 2 years on a project on tobacco policies in India. Post which she began her work at a Center for Mental Health Law and Policy in 2020. Her work in mental health is informed by an interdisciplinary and systems lens seeking to address the determinants of health and mental health beyond the individual. She is particularly interested in the fields of suicide prevention, addiction, and community health. And our next panelist is Balakumar. He is coordinator and founder director of youth ministry in Andhra Jesuit province. He is the coordinator of YESJ, um, Youth Empowering System Jesuits, which is residing in Andhra Loyola College. As part of his work, he accompanies the rural and the urban youth and conducts leadership camps, personality development programs in parishes, schools, and colleges. He's a Jesuit priest. Our next panelist for today is Princey Mariam Thomas. She's a project facilitator at Headstreams. She works at Headstreams, which is an NGO that believes in facilitating learning and growth through play. She currently works with children in conflict with law and children in need of care and protection. She enjoys spending time with children and adolescents, and she wishes to work towards creating spaces for free expression and exploration everywhere she serves. And not last, but we have Tanisha here. She's user researcher and learning designer at Quest Alliance. She is a user researcher and Like I mentioned, she's working user researcher and learning designer at Quest Alliance. She works at uncovering, improving, and creating digital learning experiences for the youth. She began her career in the development sector a fellow as a fellow in an educational technology platform, designing digital solutions for education leaders with a strong focus in uh, institutional design principles and adult learning theories. In the last 4 years, she has nurtured a passion and commitment towards creating open, free, scalable solutions that are accessible and affordable to all. That's a little about our panelists and our moderator today. I hope you're all ready to get into yet another interesting discussion. Um, Over to Sudarshan, our moderator. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Elishaba. That was so wonderful listening from you about each one of us. And I am feeling so happy to share the stage with all those with whom I was working a couple of years back at Montfort College, and now all of them are there in various other places. So very, very happy and a sense of pride in me. So I hope all of us are ready to begin today's session. Can we start?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think it is beyond anybody's um, conflict that there is a very strong association with psychology or the entire field of behavioral sciences with the need for social entrepreneurship and social establishments and reaching out to the community. I am fully convinced that all of us who are in the field of uh, uh, behavioral sciences, mental health, should have one or the other association with the social setup. You know, the reason being uh, the fact that mental health has been stigmatized and it is still stigmatized, which has sort of reduced our reach to people who are in the need. Secondly, I personally feel that when we are working in a social sector, we are much more independent and we can reach out to the community much more effectively, much more efficiently. So I think our profession demands us to be in touch with society, demands us to be in touch or to be working in the field of social sector very strongly. So with this sort of background or prelude, I would want to listen from each one of you today about your experiences and your thoughts and opinions on how we psychologists from all branches can indulge ourselves in reaching out to community to work in the field of social sector and get access to NGO. So I would request each panelists to share your experiences and your opinions candidly so that we all can take home uh, some insights from you all. So let's begin with Tanisha. So Tanisha, I would request you to share your thoughts first.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Sudarshan and Elishaba, for such a wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. Tanisha here, and as you all have already heard, I am working in the space of in the educational space within the development of the social sector, and I'm working as a user researcher and a learning experience designer here. I think I've been invited here today to primarily talk about, how I have taken my education or what I have learned as a student and kind of applied it to my workspace, and how the two intertwine. So just to begin with that, I think for me, psychology as a subject or as as a field of study, I never looked at it as a resume builder or as a path to a career. I was in this field because I found it extremely interesting, and this was a subject that spoke to me right from my I think bachelor days. This was the only subject that I would really look forward to, and I would like kind of read up all the lessons even before like classes started, and that's what really got me hooked to the subject. And like a lot of other people, I think in the sector, I was for a while a bit clueless about how I'm actually going to make a career out of it. And I do know that, and I've met a lot of my peers who are in the same situation where they take up a subject because they may find it like super interesting, but sometimes may not know how what to really do about it, because I am as an individual not a person who's very comfortable opening up to people very fast, or like listening to people's problems, and I get emotional really quickly. I am an emotional person, so I knew counseling as a space was not for me. And so after my bachelor's, actually I took up MSc General Psychology at Montfort. And uh, what really stuck to me was this whole mindset and this whole shift in your mindset that this subject kind of brings about. It makes you much more open, much more empathetic. It makes you a person who by nature of the subjects that you study, by nature of the things that you kind of come across in due course, makes you a more open and empathetic person. And I kind of held on to that along with some of my volunteering experience throughout my bachelor's and my master's. I think Princey's working with Headstreams back in 2013, 2014. I think that was the first time I worked with an NGO. I volunteered with Headstreams back then, and that was actually the first time I felt like, okay, there could be something that is really, really common or similar in the space, like say in the NGO sector, where people are trying to solve different complex social issues, and in the field of psychology, where we're also trying to kind of uncover and understand and help people in a different way. And I think that was somewhere where I decided that, okay, maybe this is where I want to go, and this is what I want to do. I want to be in the social sector or development sector, how it's now known. And I still didn't want to take up development studies at that point. I wanted to continue with my with pursuing psychology as a subject, but I wanted to kind of continue with my volunteering, and uh, however I could get access to that field, I wanted to continue with that. And I think that specifically, right, being open about what is out there was really something that helped me, rather than sticking to, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to get my master's in, this is how I want it to look like, and this is where I want to be 5 years later. Instead of being that way, just being open to the experiences that came to me during my bachelor's, during my master's. And I think that allowed me to kind of take a chance, because even after my masters, I did not really take up a a regular 9 to 6 job. I actually ventured into a fellowship. That was where I started uh, working full time. That was my first like experience in the development sector. It was a fellowship. It was something that was very new. This fellowship was designed to uh, kind of get more people interested into the development sector. So in a way, that was also an area where which allowed me to learn a lot of things. So it was a space where I was able to kind of do different things. I was working with an NGO that focused on creating a digital platform or a digital app for school principals, and primarily principals from underserved communities, or I'd say government school principals, or schools that are located in kind of remote areas with lack of capacity building and opportunities for school principals. I was working there, and that experience really helped. There I think my experience with the subject of psychology really helped me, because uh, I do believe that a key aspect in solving any kind of a problem, right, is to understand the people who are facing that problem. And that kind of came to me only through the field of psychology, really being that open, empathetic, being able to talk to people, at the same time giving them the space, and and those skills, right, just basic research skills. I think being doing any MSc course may give you that kind of opportunity to build that skill set. I took my research and my masters very seriously. I think these small things that people kind of uh, may think may not be very important, I think those smaller things helped me, like my practicals during my course throughout my bachelor's and masters. I gave that a lot of importance. How I do my reporting, how I create my records, how I do the actual research, how I talk to people. So I think those skill sets that I built as a psychology student kind of helped me kind of succeed in my job, where I also needed to talk to these principals, understand their problems, uncover deep seated issues, like not being, it could be something very simple like not being recognized and rewarded in this whole educational system and getting lost somewhere. But having that conversation with them as a 22 or 23-year-old talking to a 50-year-old, and not coming across as someone who knows more than we know. But all of those things, I think they were challenging environments, but I think my education kind of helped me get there. And yeah, I think that was a starting point, and I knew there was no looking back. I worked there with the platform, I created digital learning experiences, and then from there I moved on to my current organization, where I'm still creating digital learning experiences, but for a different kind of user base, which is more underserved youth, so between the ages of I think 15 to 30 primarily. But even this ability to adapt and kind of, be open to change, I think that also somewhere came to me from like this risk-taking behavior, I would call it, which is also something I learned as part of my biopsychology course. And I kind of instilled it in me that, okay, I'm not a risk-taking person, but how can I use these concepts that I'm studying and really apply it in my real life? And yeah, so I think a lot of these different thoughts on my mind right now, but this is primarily what I wanted to share about how how I got here and how psychology as a subject helped me.
Thank you, Tanisha. That was wonderful to see your journey. What I understand is your journey demanded you to change. You had to take up certain things which weren't part of your personality earlier. So what I understand is, we need to change ourselves. We need to keep ourselves open to work in the field of people who are in the need, right? Yeah. So thank you so much. That was wonderful. Can we now hear from Princey?
Yeah, so like Tanisha mentioned, she interned at Headstreams. I did the same. And that's how I got to know about Headstreams. And she also spoke about how, an NGO looks at the need and then decides to, design a plan around that. And so while I was at Headstreams, the need at that time was to create content uh, during my internship, and so that helped me. The internship helped me build a relationship there with the NGO and understand what are their values, and also come back and reflect on what my values are. And when I found that they align, I think things went very well. And after I finished my masters, I did my masters in counseling psychology, and but I don't directly do counseling at Headstreams. But like part of your skills that you've learned, all of that go on at work. So yeah, so at Headstreams right now, um, I help in creating content for. We've done psychoeducation workshops when we were in our masters, and so more in depth about that and like learning. I think my skill set grew when I was doing sessions there, psychoeducation sessions for children and adolescents, and having things done around activities, learning things that way. So those are the things that I use from the counseling psychology masters. And also I work with children in conflict with the law and children in need of care and protection at childcare institutions in Bangalore. So when we go there, these children need a listening ear and comforting, some sort of comfort. And that is what we provide when we go there, along with a lot of play, which helps in building rapport, which helps in learning, which sort of helps you relax also, and be more open and to share more. So those are the things that I do there. And Sudarshan, is there anything else that?
Not really, Princey. I think that has given us a good idea as to how you have been working. And, I know that you have spent a lot of time in Headstreams. We got to meet each other, at various occasions. So, what I understand from you is the first statement that you made, that when our interests match, when our passion match is when you start working on it, right?
Yeah.
So you started working at Headstreams because your passions matched, and you could find your similar ideologies with the NGO. And I strongly feel the same. If you are not inclined, if you don't know what you want to do, and if you are not sure of your intentions and passions, then I think it becomes difficult. But if you are already are aware of it, then I think the next step is to just find an NGO and start working there. Yeah, so that was very clear in your presentation. Thank you, Princey. But we'll come back to you for more insights.
Yeah.
Now, can I request Balakumar to present?
Yeah. Hi, good evening to everybody and out there who are also watching via YouTube. So it's very nice to be reconnected with Montfort family once again, and thank you for this opportunity. Um, well, I thought I'd begin with something because at the moment I wear different hats, so I am not like you. I wouldn't call myself completely into a professional psychological services that I offer, but all that I am doing has a strong basis and the foundation from psychology and the counseling skills and the techniques that I have learned way back in 2007 to 9. So um, I came to Montfort as a young brother, as a scholastic, as we call it, who is on the way to a priesthood training. So that is when I also spent a lot of time on myself. So that has done a lot of good to me. So my stay at Montfort helped me sorry. So it has helped me. It has helped me to focus onto myself first and to know what I want to do. I know I'm going to be a priest and I'm going to serve the people, but it also laid a foundation for me how I could approach this aspect of service. How do I render and how do I make myself available to people? So then the journey began, and today what I am and the little good that I'm trying to do among the young people of all types of people, both rural and urban and school going and college going youth ministry, that through that organization SJ Youth Empowering Service Jesuits, has it's creating a small ripple effects of transformation in the locality where I am working. And it is very difficult to measure the success. It's very difficult to measure the success, but I know for sure it is doing some good because I'm focusing on one simple thing, which many of us don't see it as a big thing, but I'm sure you, as psychologists and behavioral therapists, would see it: unleashing the potential that every human person has. And that is something that is neglected most of the time. So as I go around dealing with young people, I would call myself as accompanier of young people, as I would like to accompany with them and journey with them. So this is something that is very evident for me, that unless and until we touch that core of the self-belief that every person holds, if that is not positively nurtured, and I think any therapy, any technique is not going to help us. So that is a big learning for me. So I constantly, through various methods, as Princey said, psychoeducation, motivation, personality development programs, what you call it, you name it, soft skills and social skills, all that revolves around this simple fact and this simple thing that we would like to touch that core. Believe in yourself that you can make anything possible in your life, irrespective of your caste, religion, and the social status that you come from. And because you and I know that most of them, as they come from the rural backgrounds, when you deal with some poor people or young children or young students, and they have their own baggage. Poor me, I'm after all a girl, or I'm only a poor person, and I'm a neglected person, I'm a low caste person. So much of self-feeding that happens, and that needs to be attended to. And that needs to be attended to. That's why that S philosophy is very important for me in what I do. That S philosophy, I'm definitely, I'm convinced. That's why I chose that name, Yes J. Yes, instilling that hope and courage in young people and creating a support system that will empower them to shout to the world and to shout to themselves and say, yes, I have dreams. Yes, I'm capable of fulfilling my dreams. Yes, I can and I will be the dream I want to be, if only I have an opportunity. So, to that extent, people like us, compassionate people who are doing in various fields that we are working, the beautiful heart that we all have, and we try to give and provide that opportunity for these people. So, and this is basically what my background with psychology has helped me. As somebody beautifully said, I think Sudarshan said, I think we are needed everywhere. We are like that genie. We can go anywhere. We can go anywhere, and we are accepted, and we are needed, and we are in demand, and we are accepted everywhere. So hence we have a great scope to go anywhere and offer ourselves and our services to people. So basically, in a few lines, if I say my work at the moment through this, I say to try to bring a social, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, and much more a practical help to the young people who are in need, irrespective of their caste, of their religion, and social background. And what do I do? I try to create for these type of young people a kind of sensitization to look for each other's needs and concerns, and to be a support to each other, and solidarity, express solidarity for the struggles that one goes through, and to reflect on the concerns that affect all of us in our own way. So hence, in a way, through our work, we resolve to help our youth, to accompany our youth to realize their dreams through education, for the dropouts, vocational training, and for the students who are studying leadership training programs, for those people who come from the vernacular backgrounds, communication skills in English and so on, personality development programs, life skills, and etc. So, in a nutshell, I would say this is what is happening, and all that is I'm doing has a basis in what we have learned in Montfort. As a psychologist, it has opened many doors for me and helps me to be more confident in the field that I am now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bala, for sharing your thoughts. And I think the entire world knows how Jesuits are working, especially in the field of education. And I really like your passion in, empowering youth. You have touched the right nerve, I would say. You know, if you encourage them to become stronger and self motivated, I think rest of the things are taken care.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm sure you have a lot more to talk about, how we can bring in the field of psychology in the into social sector and NGO. So we'll come back to that and discuss that in detail.
Okay.
Now we have Amiti to share her thoughts and experiences. Amiti?
Thanks, Sudarshan, and thanks everybody. It was so good to hear your stories and how your journeys have been so far. And I think we're all kind of doing similar things, but approaching it different. Maybe our day to day looks different, but we are all seem to be kind of driven by our values and our passions. So my profile might be slightly different, but how I was interested in this work is that from a very early age, I knew I wanted to work in the field of health somehow. And it kind of circuitous. I thought I considered medicine, considered being a health professional. So psychology wasn't one of the initial places that I wanted to end up, but I somehow knew that I would end up being in this field. And a part of me for the longest time also wanted to, and maybe possibly still wants to be a counselor. But what I think, similar to what others have also said, I think I had a lot of questions all the time about the state of the world. Um, and driven by my very, I would say, like emotions or just passions around me, I couldn't not always be thinking about the state of the world, like issues like unemployment, issues like, structural things. There is such inequality in our society. So these are things that I would just generally be thinking about. And somehow my over the past, from early college days, I just found myself solidifying that further when I realized that public health was actually a field where it was not looking at systemic structural things that cause people to be unhealthy at a societal level, not just an individual level, but at a larger scale. And then I also realized how interconnected that is with employment, education, our livelihoods, our environment, all of that. So it was more of a theoretical exercise. And through my college, I had the opportunity to study abroad, and there they emphasize research. So that's also when that kind of shaped, like this interest could be understood through research. Um, was where those interests kind of tied together. Um, Yeah, but also coming back to what both Sudarshan, you and Bala kind of echoed, is that psychology is all encompassing. It's kind of related to every aspects of our lives. It's not just mental health. It connects somehow to all aspects. So while I was working in health straight out of Montfort, I had the, I would say, like a public health a wish to work in public health. So, which is what I did straight out of Montfort, and I was exposed to the field, kind of. Even though with that, I think in that institute, kind of the only person with a psychology background, but I was still very interested to know what the field entails. And then working there for 2 years, I knew that I wanted to bring together my learnings and interest in public health with mental health, which is when I started working around 2 years ago at a similar place, like public mental health is what I call it. It's the Center for Mental Health Law and Policy. And here too, we're trying to answer some of these bigger questions around, the mental health issues at the country level beyond the individual level through research. And that's what my work entails mostly. Um, yeah, I think I've covered it, and probably that's just an introduction, and then we can discuss more as as we progress.
Definitely. Thank you, Amiti. And with your permission, I want to share how passionate you were when you were doing your master's, to get into the field of social work. I remember you coming to me and sharing the urge that you had to get into social work. So, very glad to hear from all of you. And each one of you have really traveled quite far in taking psychology along with you in each of the work that you're doing, right, from education to the field of health and policies, and youth development, and working with children with conflicts and various other aspects. So let me introduce all of you to this question that probably most of our viewers would want to ask. That there is this, I would call it a misconception, that if you want to get into an NGO or in social sector, then you should compromise on your you know on the dream of making a decent life. I'm directly talking about money. If you are in NGO, then you can't make money. If you are into the social sector, then you can't. You should forget about uh, the normal life. You should always compromise on your needs and wants. So what do you all want to say about this? Is it really true? Do we have to compromise on our need for money? This is an open question. Anybody can jump in.
I can start. I have a lot to say on this subject. I do think that as a field in the development sector, a lot of people come here because of passion, and the passion sometimes is thought that you're so passionate about something, so maybe uh, you don't you're doing it out of passion and not for the money, is it? I get that, but I think one, maybe now that organizations are paying better, so it's not as bad as one would think. But two, I think as a field and nonprofit for sure, but even mental health professionals, anybody working in the social sector, working for a cause, I do think they can be paid better because I think that this work involves a lot. It takes a lot out of people, but it's part of the same thing. Like, why are some professions higher valued than others when the kind of work that we're doing is not any less? So yeah, I can go in on a big rant. It is getting better, the pace, but there shouldn't be so much income disparity.
Okay, thank you, Amiti. That's really assuring. Anyone else? Do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to add, Sudarshan, to that I do feel like to some extent it is a myth that the NGO sector does not pay well. I do understand that it may not be on the same on par with, say, a lot of multinationals, or maybe a software developer, or maybe like somebody in the field of medicine, a doctor may not. I mean, that is very different, right? But I think off late, especially in the last decade, I feel like there has been like a real shift in this field, and more organizations are willing to actually hire people with skill, despite having to kind of really maybe cut down on other costs, but people cost is something people are willing to pay for. And I do feel like the situation is a lot better than it was before. And if you compare it honestly to a lot of the other platforms, like even other like economies, like the gig economy, etc., I feel like the development sector does pay, I wouldn't say amazing or great, but pays decent. And like Amity said, I think at the end of the day, it is a balance of what you really want to do out of life and your passion, and also having that comfort. But if for you that drive and that passion, etc., is not there, then of course this aspect would not make sense at all. So I
Yeah.
think.
Thank you, Tanisha. Bala and Princey, you have anything to add?
Okay, so I've been asked if do you really get paid? Like, do you get paid for the work you do? I'm like, yeah, that's a very normal thing. I also do work, and yeah, I think for me right now it's a decent and sufficient pay, and yeah, compared to what I've heard earlier, it is better. I agree with Tanisha, and yeah, it can get better. That would be
Yeah.
why not?
But I may not fit in here, but I don't get paid anything because the life that I chose is different, so I cannot compare ourselves. But I completely agree with
Bala,
what
hire
you said.
people. So you're an employer, so you can
Pardon?
answer this question better.
Pardon?
No, I said you hire people to work, don't you?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you're an
I'm,
employee.
I'm coming to the next point. I have to come to the next point.
Yeah.
So it is important that people who are in this profession also have to make their living. It's not the passion alone is not is going to enough. I quite agree with your sentiment, and because doesn't mean that you are serving people or a compassionate heart that does not need to have money. Probably you need to be paid more, and we need to be paid more because we have both combination, a compassionate heart, at the same time we are professionals. So I think we need to be paid more. So that I agree, quite agree with you. So at the same time, people, like for example, the organization that I run is a small baby of 6 years old. So now I know that I'm more or less alone to doing a lot of things, but I want to scale it up. I want to go to the next level. But I need a professional like you who is able to motivate, who will take classes, psychoeducation, counseling, and all that. So, but I also struggle to how do I identify funds and so on to pay a decent salary has to be paid, otherwise the quality suffers. So this is the struggle that we have, and that is when sometimes, as Tanisha said, if somebody has a heart for it, they would, for in the beginning they would say, okay, it's okay, I paid less, but my drive is to do something more better. And okay, Father Bala is trying to settle. So it's a case to case. And I think good people always will come. For example, if I have to organize a webinar, and if I say, Tanisha, can you take a webinar, Tanisha may not say, okay, how much are you going to pay for the webinar? But it's an initiative that you're trying to do, and one of things she might do that. So but if I ask her to every week, I want a webinar from you or a class from you, and I don't pay her, then that is unfair, I would say. So I think we all can make balance, and we do that very well, because ultimately we are compassionate people. So
Thank you, Father Bala, about that. So on the same lines, I was also thinking that the next myth, or the kind of mindset that people always have is, if you have to work in the field of NGO, then you have to be absolutely passionate. You have to put in your heart and soul and everything, and probably compromise on your personal life. Is that true? I mean, can we have a balance of work life, or is it like you have to dedicate your entire life to it? Again, an open question. Anybody can take it.
yeah, I think not necessarily, I would say, because see, for example, some people, they're not sure what they want to do, but if they throw themselves into that situation, they might be gripped by the situation that the consequences that are happening there. So they might be thrown into the deeper ends and say, yeah, I never thought I could find so much satisfaction, meaning, and drive, or even in the success in this field. So let me go in this direction. So if they can plunge into, sometimes it can happen. It's not just the passion alone drives me into that, but my openness and flexibility and adaptability to the situations and to the areas of the fields that are emerging might take me to different levels as well. And so, and not that we just marry into one profession and just end ourselves there, even if there is not very prospective.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. How about others? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so passion, I believe, is something that grows and then you explore. So um, I think I'm still exploring my passion and understanding more, but I know what I like right now, and I know what um, uh, I'm working towards, and that is like to have a sort of safe space for the children I work with and all of that. Um, so you also asked about work-life balance, and that is something that I'm struggling with. I mean, I had been struggling with, so because um, uh, so this is my first job after my master's, and you sort of need that space to get used to it and to understand what to do where, and all of that. So that was sort of wavy for me, but now I think I'm sort of getting into a groove, and I'm understanding, okay, I can stop here. I don't have to completely go crazy and do everything at one time, or like be worried about, oh no, this is not done. I can take my time and pace it, and sort of that balance is sort of coming. And I think each person, when we'll explore that balance along the way. And yeah, and sometimes some days you're not going to be very high on, oh, this is what I want to do, this is my so you're not going to be passionate every day. So every day is different, and there are times when you want to go back and reflect and see, um, is this along the lines of what I believe in?
Right.
And sometimes you might find different answers, and sometimes you might be surprised that it is along the lines. So for me, I find reporting to be a very mundane job, but then I had this I'm understanding that reporting is so vital. Like, it helps you reflect on the work that you're doing, on your behavior, the behavior of the children, and to see where work needs to be done. So each day it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Princey, for saying that. I deliberately asked this question because it's very nice to talk about passion and our interest and excitement, but the reality is that excitement and energy doesn't last long. As in, it won't be there all through the day or every other day. Some days there are ups and some days there are downs, and some days you might start questioning. You might be hit with all the existential questions. You will start wondering, why am I here? And some other days you're so passionate that you want to just do magic. So I think anyone who would want to get into the development sector should be aware of this. uh, uh, is what I personally believe, and that's the reason I asked, what are the qualities, or how should you know anyone who would want to get into development sector, who wants to take up social sector as their profession, what are the things that they should do? I mean, anybody can answer.
Okay, I'll go for that. I think the one thing that really helped me, actually, two things. One thing that really helped me was asking a lot of questions, because at the end of the day, it is about the value system. Because when you work for an NGO, it is different. It's a non for profit, right? So that automatically means that there is a mission, vision, and there are certain value systems that this organization is working with, and it is important for you to align with that. So asking those questions to ensure that your value system is aligned to the value system of the organization, I think, is very, very important to begin with. And of course, there are then other questions about, uh, you know and other efforts like building your network, talking to different people in the same field. If you find out about, say, an organization tomorrow, trying to see if there are people that in the organization, so those kind of things, basically asking a lot of questions and understanding the actual work that they're doing rather than the role that you're applying for, because that role may change, that role may transform. You may be able to, like, I've done that with my role. When I joined as something else, but my passion, my skill set took me somewhere else. So I think that's important. Yeah.
Very valid, very valid. Thank you, Tanisha. Amiti, would you want to add something?
Yeah, I would actually answer both your questions. I had something to say on the previous point as well, but I would
Please.
completely agree with Tanisha that it's with working in this development sector, or to be honest, any sector, but I know this sector, it is crucial that your value system be aligned. For me, that's what's worked wherever, every single place that I worked. Um, Even when times get tough, you know that at the end of the day, you are all very much in sync. As individuals, you are definitely in sync with, I can say, with all my, at to a large extent, with everybody I worked with. Maybe we do disagree on certain things, but at core values are the same. And for me, that's very important. And I think I imagine that if I worked at a place where that wasn't the case, it would be very difficult for me. So just to echo Tanisha's point, But also, I did want to come in on your previous point about, does passion run out? And also tying it to, like, what can people do who want to work in this sector? I think one is that the sector is itself expanding. Like, there's so many people I work with who come from varied backgrounds, and within organizations too, they have different roles. You're not actually activist in everything you do. You have people who are designers, editors, finance. There's a very large range of people who work there. So it's not, you're not imagining like this very compassionate person all the time. So one is to just see what are the opportunities, what are the roles, and then they can also be shaped according to people's interests. And about passion running out, that definitely did happen to me around last year, where I did. We work for 6 days and we work really hard. So I was exhausted all the time, and I was, kind of questioning, why are we doing this, what's the point, etc. Because that's when actually passion was dying out. But one thing that helped was that, your values were aligned. So you knew that this is a temporary setback because you are where you want to be. And two, like, your passion can't be everything. So then I had to go in and schedule things for myself outside of work, to make sure that, you're recentering yourself, finding your balance. So that never stops. And probably it'll be cyclical, like it'll go up and down. But like with any other field, I imagine that you just do have to take care of yourself too.
Well said, Amiti. That's something that I also have been observing in many people, that you know we should be open for passion running out. And the most important point that I like in what you just shared is working in NGO is not always about the spreading of compassion and things. There are heck of a lot of other things. I think one important thing that we can learn, especially coming from a rehab psychology background, is the multidisciplinary approach. You are dealing with so many other professionals. You have to liaison with so many people. You have to understand so many aspects of it. I think I have a last thing to uh, place in front of you all to see how you all reflect on that. Is Of late, the entire mechanism of the funding agencies, be it government or non-government sector, seem to be more organized, in terms of they are asking for a lot of details. They ask us to be much more accountable. And recently, I was trying to apply for funds from one of the funding agencies, and interestingly they were asking about how do you understand the role of other professionals, and how much do you want to encourage other professionals to come into your program and things like that. So how do you all see the current climate in the field of developmental sector, social sector, in terms of expanding our help? How does the current climate look like?
Yeah, I'll take a quick point on that. But typical NGOs, if they are doing social service and social work, I think there are some funding um, availabilities. Funding is available. But definitely, as you rightly said, today it is going to be very, very professional. Yeah, high scrutiny is expected, and they are looking for how the money is spent, and they even go to the extreme, to the extent of saying, how much money are you spending on the administration, because sometimes it doesn't reach to the
I'm
real.
told there is a standard, share of
Yeah,
funds, isn't it, for
yeah. So
administration?
yeah, they're even capping on that now. So you cannot spend, especially if there's funding coming from abroad, they even cap on that. You cannot spend more than this amount of money on administration, things like that. So having said that, it's also, I'm glad about it. Actually, it is important that we are accountable every rupee that we receive. So that is very important. But my only a little since we are particularly interested in terms of helping people in the area of mental health, I think very less funding is available. You might be much more informed. I don't know, but I don't see very much importance is given in terms of funding. So we might have to really scratch our heads to get some funding, or even really convince people, because it is not understood as a very important element of our integral life that we live. So it is
But
not
Bala,
seen.
interestingly, since you have said this, I'm
Yeah,
so sorry to cut
yeah,
you in
yeah,
between. The recent budget, I don't know. Yeah,
yeah.
I
Okay,
think the recent one, central government has opened up for tele-counseling and all of that.
okay.
And NIMHANS, apparently, I recently had to reach out to NIMHANS Wellbeing Center because the place that I'm working, we are
Mhm.
also hoping to start I mean, we have started a wellbeing center.
Okay,
So we wanted to see if something can be done. And interestingly, NIMHANS is considered to be a nodal office which
okay.
can expand its service to other
Okay.
NGOs and sectors. So the
Good
fundings
news.
are available, but it seems
Good
to
news.
be
Yeah,
quite uh, uh, hard to get
yeah.
it.
Get it.
I mean, very, very procedural.
Yeah, but the individuals, like, of course, NGOs, well established NGOs might be able to tap them, but budding NGOs or some individuals, like, let us say, some of our panelists, if they want to take an initiative and do something, I think it's rather difficult unless they are able to network and collaborate with some NGOs and do it. So we have to figure out. But I take the point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
How about others?
Can I actually add something here?
Please,
Yeah.
please
So,
go ahead.
very interesting things. I think two things, two words that caught my attention: collaboration, and I think somewhere monitoring and evaluation. But just going back to what Sudarshan was talking about, NIMHANS being a nodal organizations, I think that is a very important point, because I think the way that the landscape has changed in the last few years is that there are these established organizations that are working on certain causes and have plentiful funds, right? I think what has started happening in the last few years is there is so much more collaboration happening between organizations. So even if I, as a startup, as a social entrepreneur, cannot directly access those funds, there are like social incubations, and almost every big organization today has those social incubators in place to kind of support small growing organizations working for a cause. So I think the climate, and I wouldn't be able to comment particularly on the mental health scene, but largely in the NGO sector, I think funds are plentiful. It's just about kind of finding those. Uh, One is, of course, ensuring transparency, maintaining your monitoring evaluation framework, kind of having your impact framework in place. No matter how small an organization you are, I think these things are very, very important. But if you have those things in place, I think if I were to look back 5 years ago to what it is now, I think there is a lot more scope to kind of be able to access those funds. And I think that is also kind of helping the sector grow a lot. And I think a lot more employment opportunities actually are coming up in this sector. Uh, yeah, especially in the space of like, societal issues like unemployment and education. A lot of NGOs working specifically in these two areas. Also livelihoods. I think there are a lot of foundations and a lot of organizations. So if you're a person interested in this space, but have certain reservations about finances, need to support your family, I think looking for organizations with approved funds with FCRA regulations in place would really help. You should, I mean, that should be something that should be a priority for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Tanisha. Amiti, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would. I think I have mixed feelings, which might be a little, again, a little longer than this platform would allow. I think um, I would agree both with actually Bala and Tanisha that while funds are difficult, they are easier for places which are more established. And then it's also sometimes you have this, which I've observed in my experiences, is that those who funds actually end up going to the same places again and again. So even NIMHANS does take up a lot of central funds, which can be spread in other places. So that's just something to note. But given having said that, with especially in health and mental health. There is word that, post the COVID crisis, especially, that this is going to be taken more seriously. There are going to be funds more available. And I came in also on the last point that Tanisha made about FCRE funding. Um, while there are also funding opportunities, unfortunately, with the current just larger political scenario, a lot of organizations, there is a little bit of, for those of you who are not so clued into the sector, but sometimes there is um, a censorship of what kind of research is being done and where the funds are going. So that way there are other things at play, and it does get quite complicated. So I'll probably stop there. But yeah, it is a growing field. So if anybody's watching this and is not to be discouraged, there is plentiful, but there are their own politics and nuances to that.
Yeah, thank you. Princey, you have something to add?
Not really, but I think everybody covered everything.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we have come to the end of today's discussion. Um, Let me sort of quickly summarize that what we have discussed so far. I think there are three takeaways from the panel discussion that I witnessed. The first takeaway is, working in the development sector, working in the social sector, working with NGOs is no more, a very idealistic thing. It's not. It is not philanthropic work anymore. You can make a profession out of it, and there are certain mm, rewards and bonus that you get for working in the field of social sector. So the I think this myth needs to be bursted, that if you are in the social sector, then you are as good as becoming a saint. That no more holds good. The second takeaway that I have gathered from all your conversation is that um, it demands a lot of professionalism. It demands us to be having a very good sense of balance in terms of our work life and our skill sets. And it's not because a lot of people think that working in social sector just requires your dedication, but it's not just that. You have to have a lot of skill sets, and importantly, to be very clear with your vision and your mission, and it has to be aligned with the place you're working. Otherwise it doesn't work out well. It's not like you just apply for a job and start working. You have to be very mindful of what you want and where you want to work. And the third important thing, the last thing that we all discussed, is the current climate seems to be really good. Uh, I mean, this is my personal experience as well, because the governments, and just not government, there are a lot of corporate sectors who are really eager to invest in social sector, especially in the field of mental health. I think all of us who are in the field of psychology have great opportunities to make use, in terms of coming out with projects which are socially relevant, which can answer some of the basic, challenges of the society, especially the post-pandemic world. I mean, I think I can say post-pandemic. I hope there is no more waves coming up. So in this, after the pandemic that we have experienced, I think most of the people who are involved with human life have realized how important it is to have a healthy mind, because that was the one which was challenged to the core during the pandemic. So there is a lot of scope, opportunity, and resource available out there, but it is not easy. It's not a cakewalk. We have to be very organized, and like how Tanisha mentioned, I think we should associate ourselves with another established organization, so that all these difficulties of proving ourselves is taken care. But there are these agencies such as Nimhans and other places who receive funds, but they are also open to associate with other places where they can channelize it. Because recently I attended a seminar organized by Nimhans where they are funded to create smart cities. They want to have smart cities which are mentally healthy. It's not, smart city is not technologically as upgraded, but it has to be healthily upgraded. So that's the reason Nimhans has taken up funds for developing smart city. So so there are a lot of opportunity, but it is for us to tap on it and also to offer relevant and practical solutions for the social problems. So I think with this, we can sort of end our panel discussion, and let us see if there are some questions.
Yes. Thank you so much to your panelists and Sudarshan for this amazing um, discussion that we had so far. And yes, we do have few questions to get more clarity and understanding on. I understand we do have taken a little more time. So if you're comfortable, you can continue for the question and answer session. But if you need to leave, feel free to drop. Okay. So with that being said, so I've got a few questions. One being, like, I know we kind of discussed a little about passion running out. So get as compassionate people, being in the social sector. What are few things that you would do, to manage with compassion fatigue or compassion burnout? Can you share your experiences on this? Any of you? That'd be helpful. Yes, anyone who's
How do
comfortable.
you take care of yourself is the
I'm sorry,
question.
Sudarshan.
No, I said I was asking the panelists, how do you take care of yourselves?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, so I can go. Yeah, one is I undergo therapy. So like that's like a basic thing. And yeah, there are times when I switch off from all work, and I think that weekend break is really important for me because I need to rest during that time. And luckily, Headstreams has off on Mondays, so my Mondays are amazing for me. So Saturday and sorry, Sunday and Monday. So and yeah, that is one thing, like weekend break and therapy. And sometimes these daily practices that one thing that I do is I've started to do is consciously write down things I'm grateful for. How can I make my day better, or what I've learned from the previous day. That's sort of helping me be reflective. Yeah, these are some things that I do.
Thank you for sharing, Princey. Anyone else want to share how you manage with uh, burnout or just working in this field? How do you look after yourself?
So one of the very primary things for me that on a daily basis is a quiet time. As a prayer is something that helps us, no doubt about it. If somebody who does not say I don't believe in God, at least quiet time for with oneself would be very helpful. Would be very helpful. And also there is something called on a daily basis in layman's terms, in corporate world we can talk about evaluation of the self at the end of the day. And we call it as a examination of conscience. Just relive your day, the major episodes of the day. At the end of the day, what are my high points or what are my low points, and what are things that have drained my energy, and how do I arrest them for tomorrow. So a bit of focus onto it would always give a perspective and focus for the next day. And timely breaks, hangouts, and be with friends, and take some movie. I don't know, regular things that all of us. But the question is sometimes, how do you really give time for it? Is difficult. Sometimes I find it myself difficult. And the second very important thing which I am struggling and trying to learn is to maintain a little more professional boundaries in this profession, especially because we are seen as people who are available and approachable all the time. So they can take us for a ride. And if I could learn to say in a very gentle way, no, I'm sorry, I can't at this point of time, might save ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you, Bala. Thank you for sharing that. So, if Amity or Tanisha, would you like to share your thoughts, or shall we like go to the next question?
I just take off before I feel burnout. So that's all I have to say. I make sure that I have at least 2 days off in a month, even if I'm not doing anything. So yeah, that's my way of dealing, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can quickly come in. I did face burnout myself. So I learned the hard way that, whether you have time or not, because we do work for long hours, that whether you have time or not, you have to go ahead and schedule other things. So then the rest will fall in place.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, so going to our next question, our viewers would like to know, or in general, would like to know if there are any government jobs in the NGO sector, or the social sector. Yeah, any government jobs that you're available at.
There aren't any government jobs per se because NGO means non-government, right? So
Yeah.
it can't be government job. But there are a lot of research projects that they can associate with. For example, St. John's has a lot of research projects, NIMHANS, and there is something called Center for Excellence in Social Science, CES. They have a lot of research projects, and a lot of these upcoming universities have research projects which are funded by government and non-government organizations. So I think, yeah, that's
Okay,
from my side.
okay.
But
Thank you, Sudarshan.
sometimes, yeah, NGOs, if they're asking for the government jobs for the psychologists, probably I don't know the state policies in different states. In schools and colleges, they might open some counselors and psychologists for each educational institutions or hospitals. There are sometimes you need to have psychiatrists. So they might be government positions, but not indefinitely, as you said, in NGO is a, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
I can also come in, sorry. There are actually a lot of various policies and programs specific to mental health. But then sometimes, especially for a counselor, if a counselor is asking this, there are openings in hospitals, and also there's like the district mental health program, which has been there for, 20, 30 years. So oftentimes they may be hard to find because at least in our circles, we don't just see them directly, but there are definitely a lot of openings and actually a lot of need as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Amity and Bala. So something I'm interested to know is, do we need to do any other or additional courses after our masters or having a psychology degree in order to work in the social sector of psychology, so as a psychologist?
I can come in here. I think it really depends on the nature of the job that you apply for. Uh, if and honestly, that is it. It really depends on that. But what I found really useful, or which I found when I was applying or looking for jobs, is that the space is generally more open to the skill set that you have, and then the NGO or the development sector to some extent also gives you that opportunity to build that skill set further when you join into an organization as a role. But there could be a possibility that 6 months or 8 months into that role, you feel like you need to build a certain skill set. Like I did not do a design course, or I'm not a learning experience designer, but I am doing that for the last 4 years, and I have done a couple of online courses to build. I'm also doing some product coordination, so just simple skills, like uh, it could be something as simple as UI UX course online. So really depends on what kind of a job you apply. But to begin with, just to enter into the sector, I don't think you need that. But maybe as you progress, you might.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts on that. Yes. Yeah, we can, go to one last question, and I think this might get a little personal. So, what is an average pay skill that you can expect from, the work that you do?
10 lakhs? No, I'm just kidding.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
that's good.
Um,
yeah.
are you asking about like an entry level job, or are you asking for like experienced people?
On an average, like let's say as a beginner and as they progress into a professional, what could be an average amount a person could expect?
I think from what I've seen, it's actually very sad, but it's extremely diverse. It can be anywhere between like 3.5 to like 7.58. It honestly depends on what kind of an organization and program you join. If it's fellowships, it's mostly a stipend, and after the fellowship, actually a lot of opportunities open up. So you can actually your salary could double. So, which is why I feel like in the NGO space, fellowships are generally good spaces to explore if you want to understand the sector and build your skill set, because that opens up diverse opportunities for you within the sector. But other than that, I think it's very very subjective.
Yeah.
Really depends.
Mhm. I think, like as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, like psychology in this mental health in this field is like a wide range, has like wide range of options. So to even put like a point and say, hey, this is what you're gonna get, could be we can't do justice for that. But yes, thank you for sharing that. It's subjective to the work we do. Yes. So before we kind of close our session for today, would you like to share one challenge each of you might have faced, being in this field, being in this as a psychologist in the social sector?
Well, the place where I am, like I'm in Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh. One of the huge challenges that I place is to find qualified people to work with and similar passion, some interests that people share. So that is one a big challenge. And if I have to express some, the second challenge is that there is I am ready to offer some services, but the takers are not so let's say not proactive, uh, and that means there is not much of awareness and not much of inclination or interest towards it. And so that's where we have to go to the next level, is to start motivating them, bringing awareness, and psychoeducation is something that is a huge area to work with. So
Yeah.
those are the couple of things that I am grappling with now.
I can imagine that. I mean, to psychoeducate people on the services we could provide is indeed a challenge. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share a challenge you experienced?
I can go if no one else is going. I think the challenge that you face on a broader level is that change is slow. So you might be very passionate about something. You might see, there are that first the problems you're trying to solve are complex, but so you're still working with, that whatever you're trying to work with, you're not going to achieve that, and even if you do, you're not going to achieve that immediately. It's going to take a long time. So that's just something you have to accept. And yeah, that's an ongoing challenge, though. Um, yeah, and then to counter that, then you have to find the smaller things to kind of keep you going.
Definitely. Yes. Yeah, I think even personally, being in the field of mental health and psychology, one thing I learned is like keep your expectations open, rather than keeping them high or wanting quick results. It's better to keep it open and go as the things progress. Yeah. Thank you, panelists, each of you, and Sudarshan, for taking your valuable time out, to be part of this session. I hope I mean, it's definitely a very informative session for me and all those who are watching this. I hope it is the same for you. So if if you'd like to, I mean, open for the panelists and the moderator, if you'd like to add or share anything, you can go ahead. If not, we can close our session for today. Yeah. Um, all right. If you're good to go, I'd like to keep you all informed that we have another session in a week's time on meet the HRs and learn about what goes on in the world of human resources and the role of psychologists. So do tune in to learn about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Yes.
you very much for the opportunity, and thank you, Sudarshan, Elshaba, Princey, Tanisha, Namiti. God bless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
lovely
you
Thank you,
all.
day.
everyone, for the
Thanks,
opportunity.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you. See you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye. Hope you all have a good evening.